That was nice right there. Did Will Levis stare down his receiver, DeAndre Hopkins? Yes, he did. Is that a mistake that even a JUCO quarterback should not make? Of course. Doesn't mean it wasn't a great play. Jair stretched out. Did you see how he caught that ball, Butch, with the back half of the football itself?
It was a great play.
Yeah,
it was.
It's good stuff. Good for him, and that's why he is still amongst the elite in the NFL, even though he does gamble a bit more than I would care for. Vikings, Sunday, Packers. Jordan Love, question. Why not more? Joining us now from Pack-A-Day Podcast. All he does is deliver podcasts every day about your beloved Green Bay Packers. He is our friend Andy Herman. Andy, good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, guys. Great to be back chatting with you guys.
Yeah, let's go. We missed you last week, but it's good to have you back. So, as I look in, what we do in sports radio is we often bitch about things and say we should do this to fix that and that to fix this. There's so little on the punch list right now for the Packers. I'm not even sure what to do at this point. It's been a wonderful opening 3 weeks, minus the Love injury and the game in Brazil, which could have easily gone to the Packers. What's on your punch list if you're a fan of they got to fix this, this, and this?
Yeah, that's such a great comment. I said sort of something similar on the opening podcast this week of like, this is the opposite of a burn the tape game. Like usually when you get these games where there's everything's going wrong and you just sort of like throw this one away, burn it. I want to keep watching this one. Usually when I go through and I start looking at the all 22 and stuff, I'm like, all right, this is fairly nondescript, or maybe there's a play here or there. I think I clipped 14 plays or something from this game, because I every single thing that was happening, I was like, this is really great stuff. And I'm super excited about it, including some of the plays from Edgerrin Cooper. But as far as what there's to nitpick at, man, I don't know. Rasheed Walker needs to clean up the penalties. 6 penalties in 3 games, 4 holding, illegal hands to the face. I think a illegal procedure, a false start penalty in there. That needs to get cleaned up. And just the penalties in general. I think 10 the first game, 6 the second, 10 the third. That's certainly something that's putting them behind the 8 ball. And maybe you can get away with that, even with a backup quarterback against Indianapolis and Tennessee. That's going to change against Minnesota. If you get behind the 8 ball against that defense and you become predictable and you become an obvious passing team, man, they are going to tee off on you. And Brian Flores is going to show you everything he has in his playbook and confuse the heck out of you. So that's going to be something that has to get cleaned up this week. But man, outside of that, I mean, even the run defense, they held them to 8 carries for 21 yards this week. I know Tennessee didn't exactly stick with it, but there is a lot to be extremely positive about right now and very few things to nitpick at.
Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day Podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. He's part of our Packer Insiders, brought to you by Rogers Behavioral Health, Hildebrand Law, The Great Taste of Miller Lite, and Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin. There is a difference. Let's go through some of the nuggets you found in the All-22s, and let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Nugget number 1 that I saw, you had it, a couple other people did as well, was just how much ground Xavier McKinney traveled on his INT. He was between the hashes, I think. I had to squint when the ball was released by Levis. And he covered all the way to the bottom boundary and made that pluck. That's awesome.
It is beyond awesome. I talk all the time about there's levels to the safety position. And if you're going to pay somebody a massive amount of money or you're going to invest a ton in that position, they better be able to do a lot of different things. And the number one thing on that list is, can you play a true center field safety? Because if you can play a true center field safety where you are ranging sideline to sideline and making plays like that, man, does that have so much value. And you talk about per next gen stats, he has allowed 0 yards when he's been in that position and has 3 interceptions when he's been in that position. Like, that is unbelievable. And then, it's not just the playmaking. When the Packers brought in Adrian Amos, the great thing about Amos is he was always in the right place, always at the right time, made all the tackles, was really putting the word safe in safety. You could trust him with anything. But he was sort of allergic to the playmaking. He didn't make a ton of big plays in the back end of the defense. Xavier McKinney is all the things that Adrian Amos was from a safe standpoint, where he is going to do everything that you ask him. He can cover, he can tackle, he can be where he's supposed to be, but he also adds that playmaking element. He is a complete safety. He's exactly what Jeff Hafley wanted and needed in the back end of that defense. And he has been as advertised and worth every penny so far.
How much of the next-gen stuff do you look at? I'd love to know the next-gen speed number on Wilson's touchdown, because I know he ran a very sluggish 4.58 coming out of college, but he was moving on that pass, on that screen pass. And he had a guy try to arm tackle him, and he went through him like a car chase in the movies, Butchie, where you hit one of those metal trash cans, and you just, bam, you blow it away. I mean, he was just straight downhill. I love the authority with which Emanuel Wilson runs.
Yeah, I didn't see the speed number, but my goodness, I don't think we needed to, right? You could absolutely see the ability that he brings with the ball in his hands. And there's a couple things. One, as you mentioned, the ability to run through arm tackles is awesome. He has that ability to gain momentum. And as soon as he does, look out. I think the nice thing is it doesn't take him the huge run up to get up to that speed. He can get there pretty quick. And what I was really sort of amazed by over these first few weeks is, yes, he runs, he's a one cut runner and gets upfield. And yes, he can get going fast, and he can have those tough arm tackles to break and things like that. But the little wiggle in between while he's running vertically upfield is really impressive. There's just enough there that makes him elusive enough where it's not just a straight line runner. And adding that to what he is as a runner is really special. And the two big questions, we sort of knew, even going back to last preseason in 2023, that with the ball in his hands, this guy's pretty darn good. But the question marks were, could he pick up the blitz, and could he catch the ball out of the backfield? And to have the screen pass go for a touchdown is huge. And then he had 2 plays over the last 2 weeks where he was really required to pick up the blitz. Did a great job on both of them, including one in this one where it allowed Willis to step up in the pocket and scramble for a first down. So he's been better than advertised so far.
Andy, where is the fall in your face game for this Packers? We've seen it throughout the NFL. That's why I asked, right? One of those games that just, they don't play the way that they're supposed to. They lose a game they're supposed to. Where do you see it coming? Because it's hard for me to see it.
What kind of negative question is that?
It's not a negative question. It's the NFL.
When is this team going to suck? I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
But it's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about this week is, you've had 2 great weeks in a row, and now you have a hyped up game against Minnesota, the 3-0 division. So, I don't think it's going to be this week. I could see, again, the nice thing about an Arizona game is you're playing at home, but I could see a game against Arizona sort of fitting that bill a little bit, because I think the Texans are either right before or right after that.
Texans are right after it. Texans are right after it.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see something like that. But man, Matt LaFleur has this team coached so incredibly well right now, where, again, I just expect them to go out and compete. They have Malik Willis the last 2 weeks, and they go out and they compete. Like, it doesn't seem to matter what player is missing. That Goody has done such an unbelievable job of building depth throughout this roster. And I think the other thing on top of it is the competition factor. I mean, you look at wide receiver right now, those guys are battling, 6 guys are battling for every snap. And if you're not out there blocking on those snaps, you're not going to get more snaps. Like, I think the competition, once Jordan Morgan gets back, there's going to be more competition on the O-line. Those defensive tackle and defensive end snaps right now are extremely well spread out, and they're battling for those. Carrington Valentine, once he gets back, is going to be competing for corner snaps, and Evan Williams is already at safety, Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker. Like, there are guys that are pushing everyone who's starting right now for snaps, and I think that brings out the best in you, that brings out competition, and hopefully they can avoid that sort of trap game or that come to earth game. You're probably right, it probably happens at some point, but hopefully they can avoid it for as long as possible.
What is the update on Jordan Morgan?
No update as of yet. So, I mean, the great news is they did not put him on IR before the game last week, because you'd have thought if they were going to put him on IR, they would want to get that 4-week clock ticking and start that first game, so that it would count against that. But they didn't do that. So you would have to think that they believe there's a chance he's going to be back within those 4 weeks. But as to whether or not he practices this week or gets back sooner than later, that there's been no indication on. Sounds like it was the same shoulder. So my guess is they're going to be cautious, but hopefully he can avoid an IR stint and get back in these next few weeks.
Let me put a quarter in your jukebox on your theories on the NFL in general. As we're 3 weeks into the season, certain trends are emerging. There's some storylines, some surprises, etc. The general consensus, Andy, coming out of the weekend was, what a hot garbage weekend of football that was. And there's metrics to support that it wasn't great. However, last night's Commanders-Bengals game featured no punts and no turnovers. And it was the first time since 1940 that it happened. An exceptionally clean game. So where do you stand Tuesday, wrong day, on the state of the NFL through 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think this happens a little bit early in the year where these teams aren't doing anything in preseason, and it just takes a little bit to kind of get going and feel comfortable. There's new coaches, new offenses, new quarterbacks, and everyone's sort of starting to gel. And just like we talk about early in training camp where the defenses are ahead, it always feels like early in the season, the defenses are ahead. I think teams are still learning, hey, you get the ball at the 30-yard line. And it's for some of these kickers like Brandon Aubrey in Dallas, like you get 20 yards and you're in field goal range. So we're seeing some of the field goals go up because you're closer to the actual mark that you need to hit because of the rules and because of some of these kickers that are just obliterating the football and being so accurate with it right now. So I think that's been a change. I do wish that, of course, there was a way to go back. And I listen, I don't need these players doing a ton of two-a-days and things like that, but I do think the lost training camp time has affected especially the quarterback position. And you go back to Mike McCarthy's quarterback school that was able to get Jordan ready and things like that. Like those things just don't exist anymore. And the onus is really on the players to make sure that they're doing a ton of stuff in the offseason and staying up to date with everything. So, I think it's a different game with the preseason training camp rules. You're trying not to get guys hurt in the preseason, and you end up with a sloppier brand of football once the season starts. But I think as we get into the season, we'll see better and better football. And I'll also say this, one of the things that has been fun, I think, through the first few weeks is, man, I don't know what's going to happen in any of these games. My Pick'em League, guys, is a nightmare right now because trying to figure out some of these upsets is just been beyond crazy. Like it is a parity-driven league right now. And yeah, there's some 3-0 teams, but even some of those are massive surprises. So I'm enjoying the competitiveness and just not being able to know what to predict week in and week out.
I heard that last night after the Bengals lost, it wiped out nearly 83% of the circa $1 million survivor pool field.
Yeah.
83%.
There was 83% left after the first 2 weeks. So
no,
I
think it knocked out 83 of the remaining 29%.
Yeah,
that was intact after 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet most of those leagues there's less than 10 people in it. I mean, let's just say there's a 100 person league. Most of them probably only have 10 left.
The 5-3-0 teams: the Bills, Steelers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Vikings.
Yeah,
we can agree that the Chiefs and Bills are the 2 3-0s everyone saw coming.
Yep.
Steelers, hell no. Vikings, hell no. And the Seahawks, probably nah.
Right.
Which of the non-pedigreed, meaning not Bills or Chiefs, 3-0 teams has the longest legs, do you think, for the postseason?
Well, I hope we can have this
they get there, by the way. It's no guarantee.
I hope we can bring this team back down to earth this week, but
that'd be great.
It's the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, they're doing this without Jordan Addison last week. They're doing it without TJ Hawkinson yet. And they just beat the Texans with ease. They beat the 49ers the week before that. And I know the 49ers are a little bit banged up and maybe not their juggernaut selves right now, but those are impressive wins. And Sam Darnold is looking like a legit good NFL quarterback, maybe even better. I think Kevin O'Connell is the only one right now in the Matt LaFleur conversation for, it's 3 weeks in, so make of it what you will, but of a coach of the year conversation, he's a phenomenal head coach. And you go with that Brian Flores defense where I think they got guys like former Badger Andrew Van Ginkel, of course, Jonathan Grenard from the Texans. I think Dallas Turner, they got some guys who fit that defense even better. They're playing out of their minds. Like I think they'll come back to earth a bit, but I think they're a very good football team. And at this point, I'd almost be surprised if they didn't make a playoff push.
All right. How about on the other end, teams that are in real trouble, that were expected to do something? I have 5 teams in real trouble: the Niners, the Rams, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. Yeah. Any other team that was expected to do something that is suddenly, after 3 weeks, in real trouble?
Yeah, the 2 AFC ones you mentioned, the Dolphins and the Bengals. I mean, the Dolphins look rough, and then you add the Tua injury on top of it, and that is a recipe for disaster in a division where the Bills are already undefeated and the Jets look like they're getting better with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback week by week. So, yeah, Dolphins definitely, and then the Bengals. I mean, it's funny, there was somebody who covered the Bengals, and I wish I knew so I could shout him out, but right before the season started, he was talking about, he's like, this Bengals team is not going to make the playoffs. And I'm like, this is one of those situations where you're unable to see the woods through the trees or whatever. Like clearly the Bengals are going to make at least a playoff push. And then here we sit at 0-3. There's been no major Joe Burrow injury or anything like that. And it's like, okay, I should have listened to the guy covering the Bengals because that team looks brutal right now. Listen, the Commanders look better, but sorry, what were we going to say, Butch?
No, and again, a lot of it comes with all the turmoil they had. Chase, T. Higgins, it proves, and that's why when we go through this preseason stuff, the only thing that I really care about is that there's no drama. That's what the Packers didn't have. There was no drama. Like when you can just see it trickle down, right? Like you name it, 49ers, all those teams you talked about, they've had something. Maybe not the Dolphins. I mean, maybe I missed something, but obviously the 2 injuries, the big thing there.
Big time.
All right, Andy, as always, a pleasure. We send people to your Pack-A-Day podcast. Make sure to listen to Andy. He covers the team very well, and we'll chat next week.